This is Parker Hesse.
This is Sam Branks.
You have the pleasure of listening to Hawkeyes and Tallboys. Cheers, motherfuckers.
Welcome to the Hawkeyes and Tallboys podcast, featuring your hosts, Beau Freeborn.
You know, guys, even though we get 2 conference losses, we're still going to end up 9-3. We're going to win the West for sure.
Dylan Pond.
Here's the thing, fellas. I'm going with it. 12-0, baby. We're going to do it. Let's fucking go. Woo!
And Rob Wall.
I mean, that would be shocking. But we can do it. I mean, I think we can.
So crack a tall boy and go Hawks.
Welcome into another episode of Hawkeyes and Tallboys. My name's Rob. Oh.
Hey, what's up? I'm Beau. Dill, I think you're muted, bro.
And I'm Dylan. Woo!
Cheers, guys.
Let's go. Dude, Rob, are those like cheap dollar beers that you got at Fairway or Hy-Vee?
No, dude. I haven't been to the bargain little section yet at Hy-Vee to see if we have any more discontinued liquors. I think that's what the label is. But no, I'm drinking a little Elsian Rolling Stone lager. I literally only got it because it says Rolling Stone on it. But it just tastes whatever. I also got a couple interesting beers here to show you guys. These are stouts, which are just completely ridiculous, but even more Jesus is what it is.
Love it.
I might dip into those depending on where we go.
Jesus drank wine.
Yeah, and these are stouts, which makes no sense. What are you guys drinking?
Bush lattes, baby.
Nice.
And the only thing that matters in life, straight from Milwaukee, Wisconsin itself, of the Miller Coolers Brewing Company, Miller Lite.
No GHT on that.
No GHT.
Remember when they had no GH or whatever it was,
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, for those of you listening in, thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I know it's been a little bit since we had our last episode, but there's a lot to catch up on. We're not going every week, obviously, because we're in the off season of the football season here, but we are covering Hawkeye sports and giving commentary on some of the best games and your favorite teams here across Iowa. So we're going to be talking about the men's basketball team today, and we're going to also get into wrestling like we have been. Getting more into wrestling these days, which I like. And I just wanted to give a quick shout out before we get started. I just learned about this fella. A big shout out to Ashton Barker. He is actually competing in the state wrestling championships in Des Moines next week. So he got third last year, it turns out. He's a senior at Iowa City West. So just want to say good luck to him and his family. Looks like he's going to be an Iowa State Cyclone next year, which sorry to hear that. Wish you could rest for the Hawks, but you know what I mean? It's good to get a D1 scholarship anywhere. And it sounds like he.
Oh, absolutely. And if you're not going to be a Hawkeye, at least go to UNI where, they got nothing but Iowa kids in their starting lineups. But no, in all seriousness here, Rob, I know obviously with you being from Peoria, you may not be completely aware, but, for a young wrestler, especially growing up in the state of Iowa, that's the dream, is making it to the state wrestling tournament and wrestling at Wells Fargo Arena for the chance at standing on the podium. So, congratulations to the young man and best of luck.
Perfect. Well, without further ado, guys, let's jump into and let's rewind and let's look back at the last few games at the not Iowa City. Well, they could be Iowa City, but they are the University of Iowa Hawkeye men's basketball team. And guys, I have not been impressed for how good that they've played and how good they're capable of. We've lost 4 games recently, 4 out of the last 5.
Yeah, and Rob, I'm not a superstitious person by any means, but I know you just made a comment about how we don't necessarily do podcasts every week. I think we're going to start doing them every week again for the sole reason that the Hawkeye basketball team went 2-4 since the last time we got together and recorded. So That simply cannot happen. We're not doing our part for the team. We're not being there for the guys when they're down. We're not the Keegan Murrays coming off the bench and saving the day. We're the opposite. We're the J-Bo dribbling 452 times in a 30-second shot clock and taking up 28 seconds. So Jordan Bohannon, I know he's the weekly listener, so I'm just giving you shit there. So no big deal. But in all seriousness, since we last recorded, the Hawks have been 2-4, and in those games, includes 2 losses to Indiana, a loss in a big game versus Illinois, a loss in a big game versus Ohio State, and we finally righted the ship here last night with the win over ranked 25th Rutgers, 79-66, and I think we're finally getting back on the right track. Why do you guys think that is?
Well, first and foremost, I think that CJ Frederick finally got to play last night. We've held him out for the last 5 games just due to a foot injury. And you can tell he already makes an immediate impact. I think it's not a secret that we don't truly possess a ton of offensive weapons outside of our starting 5. And that's maybe a bold statement, but CJ just draws so much attention, and he's such a good passer that he creates so much for Garza. And when he's out on the floor, I mean, Garza is unstoppable, right? So if he's able to pass it in or shoot 50% from 3 like he has been, that's a big thing too. I also think that with J-Bo getting more minutes, that Joe Toussaint really hasn't been seeing the floor as much as what he should. And we haven't been doing a great job of playing defense. And I don't think Fran's been doing a good job of rotating in the guys that can actually play defense too. Like, nothing against the starters, but Perkins and Ulis have both been playing outstanding D so far when they came in, and even Toussaint too. But there's just no opportunity that Fran's given them to come and play and make a difference. Rob?
Yeah. I got to say that I absolutely echo those, those sentiments. When you look at the starting 5, I mean, we have like solid shooting, and we have like good possessions that, these guys are able to contribute to. But there's a lot, I think, in my opinion, of standing around on the 3-point line on the offensive end. And there's a lot of, I don't see a lot of active hands and moving in the 1-3-1 zone and shifting the way that they need to be on the other end. So, and I hate to call people out, but I see that in Jordan Bohannon a little bit. I see that a little bit in CJ Frederick a little bit, and I feel like those 2 players are almost so similar. I don't know if I'd rather have one or the other. If you have them both on the floor, I feel like we need a little bit more athletic guard, somebody who's a little bit quicker, who can make plays on the defensive end and create plays for others on the offensive end.
See, I'm gonna combat that a little bit. I think CJ Frederick is actually one of our better defenders. He just has, obviously been hurt the last 5 games. But what I would say is to get, and again, this is my opinion, but get Connor McCaffrey less minutes, get Toussaint or Patrick McCaffrey more minutes, because Patrick's length definitely goes to our favor, but Toussaint's speed is just unmatched. Plus, he can create so that Bohannon has more wide open shots, and again, to give more shots for Garza and for Wieskamp too.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying there, Beau, but saying, subbing in Patrick McCaffrey for Connor McCaffrey, that's like saying, okay, we're going to sub in Joe Toussaint for Garza. Like, they play 2 different positions. I don't understand how you can go back and say, okay, well, this guy needs more minutes and this is how you take him out. Like, I'm with everyone else that you're seeing on Twitter right now that says, Fran can be doing a lot better than what he's doing with the talent that he's got. But I mean, we got to still be sensical about it at the same time. There's a reason Connor McCaffrey's in there. He has a lot of those intangibles. He has a 4-to-1 assist to turnover ratio for a reason.
One of the best passers in the Big Ten.
Got in a fight with.
But who's he passing it to though? Who's he passing it to? He's passing it to Garza. Literally, he's getting his stats from Garza. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Connor McCaffrey, and I love he's 6'5". He's got good size, but bro, he gets blown by on defense, and all he does is pass to Garza, bro, and he's no offensive threat.
Okay, all 5 guys that start every game get blown by on defense. Nobody on that team is worth a shit defensively. Or I shouldn't say nobody on the team, because nobody except for the guys on the bench are worth a shit defensively. Watch Garza. For as much as everybody just praises the bejesus out of him, he's just not that good defensively this year. and I know some people think that'll hinder him in the NBA, which I don't think so whatsoever, because you don't have to play defense in the NBA. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Basketball, true basketball fans will hate that I said that, but in all seriousness, there's not one guy that stands out for a stellar defense, and that's not what Fran harps on. That's not what he coaches hard. That's why we sit there and play in that 1-3-1 zone so we can, keep everything outside. Well, teams have figured it out and they've started burying corner threes on us. Like last night, if Rutgers would have hit a few more of those, that game would have been a lot closer than it should have been. So, that's one of those things we got to figure out. And Fran, when the national media asks him about it, or even the local media, and says, how do you improve your 3-point defense? Oh yeah, we have to get better at that. That's not a fucking answer. I'm glad we won last night as much as everybody else is, but sitting there in zone, in any sort of zone, whether that be 2-3, 3-2, or 1-3-1, you're going to give up those 3-point shots. So, how do you combat that? Well, we've seen Iowa come out in a little bit more man. And the one thing I loved about Iowa starting the season is that they mixed it up. They'd come out 1-3-1 one set, then pop back into that 3-2, go man to man the next one. Like, keep them guessing, keep them on their toes. Don't be so easy to figure out. God, it's like we're watching, early season Iowa football with the predictability of our defense. So, just unbelievable. Sorry for the rant.
No, it's good. But at the same time, too, I also think that Fran has the mentality too that, hey, we can average 85 to 90 points a game. Like, as long as we can put up some numbers, I think we're going to be just fine. And I guess, like, you look back at the last 6 games, people that we played have only scored over 81 points, 2-3 times. Like, if we are, our average, I think, is 85 points a game. If we hit our average every single game, we're probably going to win damn near every single one of the games we play in. But that goes back to the offensive not being as stellar. Like, look, we scored 79 points on Rutgers, but we only scored 65 at Indiana, scored 85 at Ohio State, 78 against Michigan State. It's just been so up and down, hit or miss, if we're hitting shots or not too.
And that's the thing. And just like you're saying, man, but how sustainable is that?
Right.
That was always my one problem with the Iowa State teams under Fred Hoiberg. I think they're pretty well known for living and dying by the 3. It's like, yeah, they might make a Sweet 16 one year, but then they might get bounced out, in the first round the next year, if they're having an off night shooting. And I don't want that to be this Hawkeye team, because I think this Hawkeye team can go deep. They got the personnel to do it. And I know I just sat here and trashed our defense, and defense is absolutely vital to, advancing in the NCAA tournament. But that's the thing. I think our defense comes from our bench. And it comes from the sparks of the guys like the Keegan Murrays, like you were touching on, the Patrick McCaffreys. I don't think Patrick's all the way there yet necessarily.
Not yet.
One of those guys that has the length to be a good defender long term. Long term, you look at, Tony Perkins. I think Wieskamp's decent defensively. I wouldn't put him in elite category by any means, but I said Tony Perkins already. Even Aaron Eulis, another one. God, you saw it the other night when Iowa was trying to come back late in the game, and Fran McCaffrey was throwing full defensive sets out there like this is fucking hockey. Like, incredible. So,
one thing I will say though, and I think that seems to be just what the strategy is with this year's team and the talent that we have on it, is like, we're gonna dump the ball into Garza. We're gonna play an inside-out game on offense to where it'll open up, shots for our shooters on the 3-point arc. And we're going to basically try to feed Garza. And then as long as we can, I think I've talked about this before, but they also do run like a 1-2-2 or sort of a half court trap that they do off of made baskets typically, I see. And then they settle back into a 1-3-1 zone. And I think they're just sort of waiting for, to gather the miss. I think that they run a 1-3-1 so that they can have, so many players by the basket, so that way we can gather the rebound. Now, granted, you're going to have teams that can shoot from the outside, and you're going to have to adjust for that. But I mean, if you can create misses from open 3-point shots, which in college, I mean, you don't see that many automatic guys like you do in the NBA. So it's like, they'll take that possession, we'll go up a possession, and we'll just keep running that scheme and extending our lead as long as we can score consistently on offense. So it's more of just like outpacing the other team, in my opinion, than it is about locking them down and getting stops. And I don't see that, and that's hurt us. I think that when we played Gonzaga, we had a guy who was just literally lights out, who destroyed us. And I feel like teams are looked at that game, and I think some of these teams are starting to say, like, hey, if we make our shots, we win against, or at least it's close against Iowa. And,
I liked how you say that though too, Rob, in terms of like in and out. Like we feed Garza, but then we feed off of what happens when he passes out. Like Wieskamp is averaging 17 points a game and 8 rebounds the last 8 games. Like that's the kind of guy we need. I'm pretty sure that Bohannon's up near 15 points a game the last however many games, or even on the season too. So like we have the perimeter shooting, but can we rely on it night in, night out, even if we're not playing the best defense?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sold on Bohannon. I don't think that I think that he's a good shooter, and I think he can he is skilled enough to bring the ball up the floor. Sometimes he makes questionable decisions with his passes. I like Connor as a better passer than I do Bohannon. But I mean, there's times, man, and this could come down to coaching. But like, as much as it looks like we are comfortable in the middle of the game, playing with the lead, running our offense, or, giving it to Garza, letting him create, passing it back out, kind of letting everyone get touches, which I love that kind of, that's my favorite type of basketball is what we sort of run. But when we're in pressure situations, like the end of the game, against Indiana, and when the last final minute, it doesn't look like there is a plan, and I don't see that from the coaching. And this stems back to before this season. If you remember when we played Michigan State at Carver Hawkeye Arena, and Michigan State had like Miles Bridges, who's in the NBA now, and that team, we were up at the end of the game and we just squandered our lead. We didn't, just from like running the shot clock out, not having a plan. There was like a last second shot. I think it was a shot clock violation. The other team got the ball, came down, scored, won the game.
And that you make a great point there too. And I just want to know both your guys' thoughts, or maybe even one of yours, but like as fans, like we see these great starts. Do you think that it's just scheduling, that we schedule maybe not necessarily cupcakes, but like we make it an easier schedule at the beginning, like front loader schedule, and then at the end we just start playing a ton of these teams, and then as fans we sit back and we look, we're like, man, confidence wise, we get to some of these close games, we're like, I don't know if we win any of these close games here on out because we've lost all these close ones here. I guess it was a double-edged question, but I mean, do you guys think that you guys have the same mentality as me, as we're not going to win a ton of these close games just because we haven't proven that we can close at the end?
I partially agree with that, Beau. I think if you look at, seasons past, I definitely think Fran and company can receive a lot of criticism in regards to scheduling. However, I don't think you can make that argument this year. I'm trying to think of all the teams we played in the non-conference this year. You look at North Carolina, you look at Gonzaga. Oh God, who else? I mean,
Iowa State's in there.
Iowa State.
No, the rest is all Big Ten. So besides those three, it was like North Carolina Central and Southern at the beginning.
Right. So
Yeah.
straight cupcakes before then, which, I mean, every team has those. So I don't know that we can necessarily blame that. I think just year in and year out, the Big Ten is just a meat grinder. Like I think, you look at the national rankings, and at the beginning of the year, how many teams are in the Big Ten? Now, how many have dropped out? Well, of course they're going to drop out. They're sitting there beating the shit out of each other.
Yeah.
I think come tournament time, you're really going to see how good the Big Ten is, and, potentially having, 6-7 teams in the Sweet 16.
We'll probably have 9 or 10 teams in the tournament.
Right.
Yep.
And that's the most out of any other conference. So, Rob, do you have anything to add on that?
Just only thing I have to add is I'm going to answer your question, Beau, and is that the answer for me is a solid no. I don't feel comfortable when we're in a close game situation. I'm almost feel defeated. It's just like, it's almost like, because I've seen so many games where like it's close and I can tell that we don't it just doesn't look like there's any sort of plan. People, panic. It looks like they, and meanwhile, the other team is like feeding off of that. They'll double team Garza, and Garza can't find the open guy. That's when we make a mistake or throw it away. And that's a turnover. That's a problem. I've seen that happen too many times to think otherwise. So I'd like to say that, I'm like, oh, if it's close, at least we can manage the clock. We can call timeout. We know what we need to do. There's a plan in place. All the best teams, especially the teams that make it to the Final Four and stuff like that, have like go-to players, at the end of the game, where it's like, and you always hear stories like that, like fantasies almost, where it's like, Jordan's gonna get the ball at the end of the game. You know what I mean? He's going to be the one to make the decision. He's got the control. He's calm. You know what I mean? Doesn't seem like any of our guys are, not to compare him to Jordan, just the most obvious example, but that they just don't seem like they have any idea of like what needs to happen. Even Garza included. I mean, sometimes he doesn't have very good clock awareness.
So on that note, so just kind of looking at our schedule, we go, and this
Yep.
is just the next 6 games. We got Michigan State, at Wisconsin, Penn State at home, at Ohio State, at Michigan, at Wisconsin. How comfortable? Brutal, right? So that goes back to my statement about front loading the schedule to where I'm not going to say play more of the cupcake teams in the Big Ten, but maybe more of an easier schedule, at least get those out of the way. Do you guys feel comfortable with that, especially ending the season like that and then going into the Big Ten tournament? Or how do you guys feel about Iowa, starting out at Michigan State, playing Wisconsin twice, playing Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan? What do you guys think?
For me, I actually like it. I'll tell you what. So here's why. So first off, this is what we talked about at the beginning of the season. If you guys remember, if you guys go back, we looked at our schedule coming out and we said, okay, we could be undefeated. And if we beat Gonzaga, which we did go undefeated before we lost to Gonzaga, then we'll see how good we really are. Well, we lost to Gonzaga, and then we won, the next, 7 out of 8 games, we lost to Minnesota. And then we get to February, and this is what we said, like February is the gauntlet. Every week we have a really tough team. We lost to Indiana, so we got to play Indiana again. You know what I mean? We lost to them again, unfortunately. We lost to Illinois, which I thought that we should have won. And most of these I obviously thought we should have won. But, Ohio State's ranked in the top 10. We lost to them. And then we got to go and play these guys. So it's like all these teams are going to really test us, and it's going to test us in like back to back games. And then we're going to go into the Big Ten tournament. So I think that regardless now at this point in the season, I think that Iowa is a lock to be in the NCAA tournament. And so if we go into this gauntlet and we lose a bunch of these games, I still think we get into the tournament, but everyone's going to be sleeping on us. And I think it's going to be good. I think we're going to be like an upset bid team, when it comes to the NCAA tournament. I think it could play out really well. I think we could surprise a lot of people. What do you think?
I was going to say, I agree with you there, Rob. You look at some of these next few games. I think Michigan State played us really tough at home, so that's going to be no slouch. Wisconsin's shown they've been up and down, overall pretty damn good team there. Penn State, I don't know a whole heck of a lot about. I wanted to say they're kind of bottom dwellers at the Big Ten right now. And then, you got a week then to prepare for Ohio State. So this is a stretch of tough, but very, very winnable games. Whereas, if we come out shooting even decently well and playing decent defense, I think we're going to be okay, and specifically as far as like Beau was saying, these next 6 games, I think there's a very real possibility we come out of that stretch 5-1 or 4-2. Anything less than that, and then I'm going to be worried. The Fran February fade that we hear so much about. You're going to start kind of having those doubts in the back of your mind of what this team can go do in the tournament and beyond. So, that nonetheless, I think, like I said, if they get through these next few games, 4-2 or better, I'll be pleased. Even 3-3, I'll be like, okay, that's, I can live with that. Anything less than that, then I'm going to be very, very concerned.
I like that take. I think it's something too that is going to push us through to the Big Ten tournament. If we go 4-2, 5-1, 6-0, best case scenario, I mean, the best teams come to play right as March comes around. So if we're playing at a high level like that, scoring 85 plus points a game, playing good defense, you guys better watch out for the Iowa Hawkeyes.
All right, so guys,
Hell yeah.
to finish up our basketball segment, let's all give some predictions and we'll go back and check and see how good we do. So
Love it.
we got this Saturday against Michigan State, at Wisconsin, Penn State, at Ohio State, at Michigan, then at home versus Wisconsin. So we play Wisconsin twice out of the next 6 games to end the season before we get to the Big Ten tournament. Dill, what is your prediction for this?
Ooh. So before we get to the Big Ten tournament, so total we have 6 games, you said, correct?
Yep, 4 of those are ranked. 2 of them are Wisconsin at 21.
Okay. So, I mean, Wisconsin, you figure there's going to be a split there. I don't know who wins where, but I feel like we split with them because they're so hot. They're so hot or cold team, kind of similar to, Iowa's been in the past where they're a team on the up. So I see us splitting with them. I see us pulling one out, whether that be Ohio State, one of those ranked games that would be a quote unquote upset. I do see Iowa pulling one of those out. So as far as the next 6 games go, like I think my prediction is going to be, my heart says 4-2, my head says 3-3. You guys know me. I always go with my heart. We're going 4-2.
I'm going to follow your lead there. I think that we lose at Wisconsin, but we get them at home, and then I think we lose at Michigan, unfortunately. I don't know. I think Michigan could be that upset game. Unfortunately, I think that we beat – actually, I think we beat Ohio State at Ohio State, but I think we trip up at Michigan, though. Rob?
Okay, so I think we're going to beat Michigan State. I think we're going to beat Penn State. I think we're going to beat Wisconsin's, and I think – that we're going to beat Ohio State. So I'm saying 5-1.
Love it.
And I hope that I'm right. I just am scared. Number 3, Michigan at Michigan. We haven't played them all year.
Got to remember, though, too, they've been on pause for a while. They haven't played basketball for a couple weeks. So
and how the hell are they fucking ranked 3rd?
Right. Well, I mean, and look what that pause did to Iowa, too. Like, I know Iowa didn't have a quote-unquote COVID pause, but, we had, 10 straight days where we didn't play a game, and I think we were all arguing whether or not that'd be a good thing. I was wrong. I argued tooth and nail that it'd be a good thing to get a break in the middle of the season. Yeah, I was wrong. That fucked up the rhythm. That messed everything up. So, absolutely not. The guys got to get out there and get playing, and, and for that reason, I think Michigan's a very winnable game because, that takes more than a game to get that rhythm back.
Well, on top of that, too, now Michigan may not be eligible for the regular season Big Ten title because they haven't played enough games. So that still leaves so much on the table for a 5-loss Iowa team to potentially get back in the race and potentially win the Big Ten at the end of the year.
What are we going to do? What do we do with a problem like Michigan when you're looking at the NCAA tournament?
Pick them out, baby.
They're not in the Big Ten tournament. They're going to be an at-large bid that's going to take somebody else's spot. That's going to be, I'd be interested to see what Selection Sunday comes around. But, guys, that's pretty much all we got for basketball. And so we're going to transition now. And I wish I had my sound effects so I could do some fun transition music, maybe some Jeopardy, like music. But we need to get to wrestling. And this is starting to become one of my favorite segments. Because I learned so much, and I really like wrestling. And for me, it's an up and coming sport because I'm new to the game. So with that, I'll go ahead and pass it off to Dylan if you want to kind of set us up and where are we at in the state of affairs when it comes to Iowa wrestling.
Heck yeah. So for those of you that don't follow wrestling all that much and may not know, Iowa wrestling is currently on a COVID pause. Some of you may know Alex Marinelli had tested positive. Caleb Young had tested positive and going through protocols. Tom Brands. What was your saying there, Beau, as far as Tom Brands?
He pinned COVID 48 seconds into the first period. I saw a tweet. I can't remember who it is, or I'd shout him out, but I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, that is. So, that's spot on. That's probably the toughest opponent that COVID's faced all year long. So, but yeah, no. So right now they're currently in a pause, and a lot of people are freaking out about that. Personally, I think it's a great thing. It's the best time to get into that, before the quote unquote March Matt, M-A-T-ness. Get it? Like March Madness, but Matt wrestling. But yeah, before March, before Big Tens, before NCAAs, we're getting all that crap out of the way. Right before that, though, this past weekend, we had a couple of good bouts, good duels with sorry, I had to burp there, but with Purdue and Ohio State, both a couple, top 20 teams. So definitely some decent competition. However, you didn't see Iowa wrestle their full A squad. So we got to see a little bit into the future, got to see some of these backups work and see what was going on there. For instance, you saw Spencer Lee's backup and Aaron Cashman, put up a pretty decent showing versus, top 15 ranked Evan Schroeder from Purdue. Ended up with the tech fall. Literally all that happened there. You saw him get taken down once, and then it was just tilts for days. So you would think Cashman would know a little bit about that, wrestling with Spencer Lee in the Iowa wrestling room, but it is what it is. No big deal. DeSanto was DeSanto both matches. I think he had 2 tech falls, so he's himself. Jaden Hireman, another one, just going to be a stud. Another match that Iowa actually lost, but I was really impressed with. And it sounds kind of funny, but in that Iowa-Ohio State matchup, you had number 2 ranked in the nation, Sammy Sasso, who some of you may remember got beat by Pat Lugo last year in Big Ten. So Pat Lugo carried that number 1 seed going into the NCAAs before those were canceled due to COVID. But Max Mirren really stuck with him. And so if you looked at that final stat line, you see, Sammy Sasso pinned number 5 Max Mirren, and that sounds so bad. Yeah, it was with 7 seconds left in the match, and, you see Max Mirren going for a move to essentially win it all. I have zero issue with that. It was very obvious that Iowa was going to win the duel. I hear people talking about team points all the time. Like, it beat someone you're not supposed to beat is something I hear quite a bit in the wrestling world. And that's what Max Mirren was going for. And he thinks he's the best at that weight. So he went for it. I am A-okay with that. Go ahead, Beau.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about Gable Stevenson being the supervillain, right? But Sammy Sasso, ever since I was in college, it seems like this dude's been around, and he's been kind of a villain to me ever since as well. Like one of those guys is just sneaky good, but someone you just love to hate as a wrestling fan of somebody other than Ohio State.
Right. No, absolutely. And it's funny you say that, Beau, because I've heard a few people say that. Like, how long has this Sammy Sasso guy been around? This is his second year.
Oh, really?
Yeah. This is his second year. So he was a guy that got quite a bit of hype coming up through the high school ranks and, in freestyle and Greco and whatnot. So,
okay.
Hell of a wrestler. But that's so funny you say that because you're not the first person that said that. So
unfortunately, I was not in college 2 years ago.
Yeah, no, and I didn't mean to make shit out of you by saying that. Like I said, I've heard that plenty of times, but nonetheless, getting back to the Iowa wrestling segment, and then we get to see some of these young guys, which I thought is getting some invaluable experience. You look at a guy like Rayna, a 4-time state champion out of the state of Florida, and it's so funny. It's like watching a Pat Lugo clone. This guy Rayna, he's a little bit skinnier, a little bit lankier. He was wrestling at 57, but he's just a clone. That Florida style, it's so similar. It's they're so reliant on their defensive wrestling, and I'd love for Lance to comment on this a little bit as well after the podcast and, tell me if he thinks I'm right there. But that Florida style, it's so funky. It's so different. It's I don't want to say it's like more focused on freestyle necessarily, but it's kind of like defensive freestyle where, you move off of people shooting in on you. It's almost like a Jaden Ironman where he feels more comfortable with somebody in on his leg than he does like in a lockup position, which is just wild to me. But so cool to see all these different styles blend into that Iowa way, where that Iowa way is, okay, yeah, I might be a defensive wrestler, but I'm going to be in your face constantly. I'm going to be tugging at your head, that kind of thing. So awesome to see that there. And then we saw Western Dubuque's own, actually, Max Lyon pull an upset versus Nelson Brandt. So I know Lance, again, big fan of the Iowa wrestling community. So cool to see Max Lyon get a W there, as much as it sucked to see Nelson Brandt lose. But literally Nelson just made one wrong move and, ended up getting a 6-pointer out of it. So that's going to happen. Nelson's still young. He's still learning in the college ranks. He's still a stud. I heard some uneducated wrestling fans out there say that he's only on the Iowa Hawkeyes because he's Terry's kid. Absolutely not. That's the most misinformed opinion I've heard. If you're that ignorant, please just don't talk about it. Just shut up.
Well, he came back and he wrestled Rocky Jordan really well too against
Mhm.
Ohio State too. So yeah, lost to Max Lyon, but came back and wrestled hard. So got to give him a lot of credit there.
Yeah, and absolutely. And for those of you that don't know much about, Ohio State wrestling in particular, Rocky Jordan's the youngest of the Jordan brothers, or they might have one more, but Beau Jordan might ring a bell, and then Micah Jordan as well. So both studs that came through there, and Rocky's another one, a little younger right now, but I think he has the potential to get up there as well. So you saw Jacob Warner finally find his offense at that 97, then and then Tony Cass doing what Tony Cass does and pinning weaker opponents, which points wise is just absolutely massive. And those are the kind of things you need. Bonus points victories are so huge when it comes to Big Tens, so huge when it comes to NCAAs. Even in a year like now where Iowa's completely stacked, there's good chances that there's going to be some upsets in the tournament. So if you can get those bonus point victories along the way, that's just massive. But go ahead.
And Rob, you're a big Tony Cassiope fan. I know
Yep.
that. You got something to say about Big Tony, don't you?
Yeah, big Tony Cassiope, man. The most Italian guy on the squad. Love him. First off, number 3 in the nation, big Tony Cassiope. Pinned Dorian Keys in 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Came back against Ohio State. Pin number 10, Tate Orndorff in 4 minutes and 52 seconds. I mean, coming off a couple of big matches for big Tony Cass. Woo! And
That's right.
you gotta love it, really. Somebody like that with a big smile that he does. I mean, he's just a crowd pleaser. But he's not the only Cassiope in town. I found out today, doing a little research, that Cassiope has a couple of little brothers out of Roscoe, Illinois, that are looking to hopefully be in the old Iowa uniform in about 10 or so years. So it was funny. Here's the story. So I looked up and I said, "Oh, there's a Rocco Cassiope or Rocky Cassiope. I think it's Rocco." And I was like, "Oh, that's crazy." Like I started looking at his recent matches, and I'm like, "Man, he's maybe Tony Cassiope's got to be his younger brother from Roscoe, Illinois." I'm like, "This kid's doing pretty decent, And I'm like, "Well," and then I see his younger brother or another brother, Bruno. Like Bruno Cassiope. First off, most Italian names ever, love it. Secondly, I'm like, "Oh, he's really good too." And I'm like, "Oh, what weight are these guys wrestling?" Because I'm like, Tony Cassiope, he is like a heavyweight guy. So I'm like, I want to see, are these guys heavyweights in high school maybe coming up? Nope. Rocco's wrestling in 95 pounds. I'm pretty sure he's 13.
Yep.
He's like in 7th or 6th grade. And Bruno is in the 12 and under. And I think he was wrestling like 85 or 88 or something. So yeah, gonna have to wait on those. But good to see that the Cassiope family is seeming to be good wrestlers. So
I was going to say my bold prediction of the day is you're going to see both Rocco and Bruno Cassiope in black singlets in their college years in 5 short years. So, I mean, we laugh about it, but think about it. I'm sure you guys feel the same way. It feels like yesterday I was in college. Shit, that was 2016. So it's like, all of a sudden it's been 5 years. Like, it's a blink of an eye. Before you know it, we'll be seeing those boys in Hawkeye singlets too. And yeah, they're not going to be heavyweights though, like Big Brother Tony. They're going to be lightweight guys. So I'll be interested to see where they shake out in the lineup. But everything I'm hearing is that they're pretty much gung ho going to be Hawkeyes. So
now
that.
I will say, Tony, if you listen to the podcast, first off, love to have you on the podcast after you finish up at Iowa. Unless Tom is going to let you jump on here, but I wonder if he's got any other brothers. You know what I mean? That's just 2. There could be more. Does he have any?
I don't know.
Like to talk to him about his family history. Like to get his thoughts on the last few matches. But anyways, we can continue.
Would like to see if he likes Olive Garden as well. If he thinks it's true Italian or not.
Ooh, I got a feeling that he's gonna hate it. I feel like true Italian people and you know what? I'm just assuming that he's Italian. So he may not even be Italian. It just seems like he is with the way that they have the names.
Right.
But so I don't want to assume that for him. But I do want to say that, hey, if he does like Olive Garden, we can definitely meet there and do an interview. So
You know what? I will say.
I was gonna say, go ahead.
Nope, go for it, Dill.
I was just gonna say, and you got to remember he is a heavyweight, so I bet he loves Olive Garden. You know, all you can eat tour of Italy, talking about the all you can eat soup, salad, breadsticks.
tour di Italia,
Olive Garden,
lasagna.
Mm-hmm. Now I'm getting hungry.
My favorite thing about Tony, though, especially this last weekend, is he won both those matches. He walked off the mat like it was nothing. Like, hey, I'm here to do business. Straighten up the tie, and I'm out of here. Like,
Right?
Got my shit done. Let's fucking go. Let's get out of here.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Loved it.
And that's what they did. You know, I kept hearing those announcers during the Iowa-Purdue match, you know, talk about, oh, this Purdue team, this is the real deal. They're going toe-to-toe with Iowa. And then the other guy that actually knew what the hell he was talking about, he's like, yeah, Iowa's got like, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 10 ranked wrestlers wrestling right now. Like, chill out, relax. Like, and they still end up winning 31-18. So it's like, again, not even close. So
I had some hometown buddies ask me, like, dude, I think I'm a little scared for this Iowa-Ohio State matchup. It's like, bro, they're gonna wrestle all their dudes. You just wait. It's gonna be worse than Iowa-Purdue, and sure enough, it was. You know,
well, and that was the thing. Even then, they didn't wrestle all their dudes. You know, they wrestled Spencer Lee, DeSanto, Jaden Ironman, Mirren, obviously, but then, you know, missing Caleb Young and Alex Marinelli, both at 57 and 65. That's big time. And then, you know, at literally everybody else, with the exception of Max Mirren, they're taking care of business for Iowa, which, you know, makes that total 33-14. So,
yep, for sure.
Yeah, you look at that. You could take 5 points away because there's no way Alex Marinelli is getting tech fouled by Ethan Smith. At worst case, you're looking at a decision there, one way or the other. So, yeah, no, it would have only been worse if I would wrestled everybody, which brings up a funny question. And I'll take it from the mailbag now just because it applies. And so Lance, our buddy, one of our wrestling correspondents, wanted me, and you guys can touch in on this as well, but just to go through a quick hypothetical Iowa versus Penn State breakdown. For those of you not familiar with the Iowa wrestling community, the Iowa Penn State is like the Duke North Carolina, you know, basketball game yearly. It's quite the rivalry. It's really heated up in the past 10 years since Kale Sanderson's took over the helm at Penn State and, you know, really improved that program and won, you know, 9 national titles in 10 years or whatever. So, you know, incredible to see. And, you know, this was the must-see matchup, must-see duel of the year. So we're going to go through a quick hypothetical breakdown here. So 125, number 1 in the nation, Spencer Lee of the Iowa Hawkeyes, taking on question mark from Penn State. If you look at all of Penn State's meets this year, they do have 4 guys at that 125 weight, but none of them were eligible to compete. So in every duel, all 3 duels this year so far, they've forfeited that weight. So we go there, and assuming Lee gets any of them anyways, he's probably getting the pin. So we're going that game or that match 6-0 Iowa. 133, Austin DeSanto, number 4, versus RBY Roman Bravo Young, currently ranked number 3 in the nation. I'd say RBY gets a decision there, even potentially a major. But I think Roman Bravo Young's the better wrestler. But more than likely just a decision. But, you know, depending on how much he's improved, I could see him potentially getting that major. So we'll play it safe. We'll go decision. So that puts it 6-3 Iowa. And then what would be the headline matchup of the night at 141? You got number 1 ranked Jaden Ironman of the Iowa Hawkeyes taking on number 2 ranked Nick Lee. And I'd give Nick Lee the decision here. Again, that's a toss-up. Both guys are just hell of wrestlers. I kind of want to give the edge to Jaden Ironman here, just with his scrambling ability, and I don't want to be too big of a homer. So that's kind of why I went with Nick Lee here. So again, toss up 6-6, Iowa Penn State tied going into 49. 49, we got number 5 Max Mirren taking on number 19 Jared Verclaren. Again, Penn State's wrestled a couple different guys here at this weight, so I didn't know necessarily who to go with, so I went with who I saw ranked on Intermat. Jared Verclaren, we've seen him a few times throughout the years, but I gave mirroring a major decision in this one. So again, you could probably be safe, give him a decision. So it's somewhere in that 9 to 10 to 6 Iowa range. And then from there, we got another ranked matchup at 57 with Caleb Young, ranked number 5, and Brady Burge, ranked number 9. Once again, I'm giving Caleb Young the decision. I think Young's a completely different wrestler this year. I think we've noticed in years past where maybe being at that 57 weight is weighed on him a little bit. Might be more of a natural 65 pounder, but obviously Iowa's got Marinelli, so that's never going to happen. But you're not seeing that this year. I think Caleb Young looks healthy. He looks ready to rock. I think he pulls off that decision there. Moving up to 65, you got number 2, Alex Marinelli, taking on number 6, Joe Lee, brother of Nick Lee, actually. I'm giving Marinelli a decision here, and simply just because of the experience. I think Joe Lee's still a young buck. He's going to be a stud, potentially a national champion in his career at Penn State, but I think Marinelli gets him early on.
You don't think it'd be a major? You think it'd be a decision?
Oh no, yeah, I think it'd be a decision.
Joe Lee, redshirt freshman. So.
Yep, Joe Lee's tough though. Joe Lee is a tough wrestler. He comes from, obviously he's brothers with Nick Lee. They come from a wrestling family, great wrestlers. So I'm keeping that one as a decision. I don't see him getting a major there. 74, then we look at number 1 ranked Michael Kemmerer for the Hawkeyes, taking on number 8, Carter Starochi. I'm guessing Starochi, something like that.
Which is weird to hear him not wrestle Mark Hall, right?
It is. God, I missed that matchup. I saw Mark Hall competing freestyle. I wanted to say it was today or possibly yesterday. So yeah, no, I don't miss him being in a Penn State singlet, but I miss that matchup. I miss the anticipation of that matchup. There's a lot of things in life that you're never going to forget, and I'm never going to forget how loud Carver Hawkeye got when Michael Kemmerer took him down for the last time last year and, took him out in that dual meet. It was incredible, because there had to be Carver holds 15-5, something like that. I mean, there had to be 16-5 people in there because standing room all the way around the arena was completely booked up to like during that match, I had to go up, walk up the stairs just to contain myself because I couldn't be sitting down. I was just freaking out, call it anxiety, call whatever the hell you want, but I just couldn't be sitting down. I was freaking out. It's like I was out there on the mat myself. So
my buddy Chase and I got there an hour early so we can get 5 rows up in the student section. And we sat there and waited. It was awesome, man.
Mm-hmm.
I'll double your statement. It was the loudest I'd ever heard Carver before.
Oh, yeah, and it not even close. It was not even close. That you couldn't hear yourself think. Like you could just feel.
But did you want to though? I mean,
No.
You just wanted to feed off the energy of the crowd, right? It was so awesome.
Oh, and yeah, everybody was absolutely just fired up, and then, it was no doubt I was taking care of every match after that, and oh, God, what a time to be alive that was. So safe to say in this matchup, I'm going with Kemmerer. So I played it safe again, went with the decision. That could even be potentially a situation where, Stararchi could get himself pinned or even potentially tech fall, but Michael Kemmerer's number 1 in the land for a reason. So then you got 84, number 14, currently ranked Nelson Brands after a loss last week versus number 3, Aaron Brooks. Aaron Brooks is an animal. I think he could even potentially get a major decision. That's what I went with here. If I wanted to be safe, I do think Brands can pretty easily hold him to a decision. But Aaron Brooks can score points in a hurry and, incredibly agile for being at that 184 weight class. So that puts us right now at 22-10 Iowa. And then going into that 197 match, you got number 2, Jacob Warner, and number 14, Michael Bayard. Again, I think Warner, just the offense I've been seeing out of him in these last few meets, I think that continues. You're looking at a decision there, bare minimum.
I want to bring up.
Oh,
go ahead, Brad.
This is a young team. I'm looking at these.
Penn State.
Yeah.
Yeah, and these guys are the real deal.
Like
So,
Michael
young.
Beard, redshirt freshman. Joe Lee, redshirt freshman. Aaron Brooks is a sophomore, freshman of the year last year. I'm just going through these guys as you're calling them out, and I'm like, damn, these guys are ranked and these are young as hell. Sorry, keep going.
No, you're fine. Penn State's reloading. It's not the days of the David Taylors. Oh God, who's that one pain in the ass? Who dyed his hair blue for the national championship
Bo
this
Nickel.
last year? Bo Nickel, thank you. Um, it's not the guys where they had those guys, Mark Hall, Vincenzo Joseph. Like, you don't have all those hammers coming back necessarily, but they got a lot of good young talent over there. So it reminds me a lot of Iowa a few years back when they had, Caleb Young, Alex Marinelli, Michael Kemmerer coming up. So Spencer Lee, another one. So they're definitely going to be a force here for a while. And then at that 285 weight class, we got Big Tony Cassiope versus number 8 Seth Novellis. Tony's too good. He's beaten him before. He's going to continue to beat him. So, I see that being bare minimum, decision. I went with decision to be safe. So you're looking at that final score conservatively, 25-10 Iowa, and that's assuming Iowa doesn't get into the bonus points, which I think they could. So this year, Iowa, Lance handles Penn State pretty easily, in my opinion. However, next year could be a whole different ball game.
So
just-
those. Oh, go ahead, Rob.
I was just gonna say, with these guys being as young as they are, I'm scared to what they could possibly churn out as far as. Now I know that we have some good recruits coming in, and I know that we could probably talk about that, but moving forward, like, these guys are going to be or continue to be very formidable.
Oh yeah, and you look at a guy like number 2 in the nation right now, Nick Lee. He's got the number 1 overall recruit right behind him. That's just tearing it up in extra matches and opens right now in Beau Bartlett. So Penn State, they're Penn State. They're Penn State for a reason. They're going to continue recruiting, and they're going to keep getting those hammers in there. So Iowa's got to compete, and frankly, they've been doing it. You got the Shriver brothers coming in, are wrestling this year. Rayna, another 4-timer. You got Patrick Kennedy. I mean, there's going to be some fun battles between these teams for years to come. So I'm excited for it.
So you're telling me, Dill, like you don't think that after we lose the Sanos, the Spencer Lee, the Jaden Ironman, you don't think that we're going to hurt at all the next couple of years, with trying to rebuild and restock up? You think that we're going to be okay right away?
I think we are. I think it's not so much of a reload and rebuild as it has been in years past. So, you look at guys like Abe Assad. I think he still has the potential, despite getting beat out by Nelson Brands this year, to be great for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Nelson Brands, another young one. Not Aaron Cashman. You look at him; he's a sophomore. He potentially has the skill set to be good. However, you got senior Drake Ayala out of Fort Dodge coming in to essentially take over that Spencer Lee role here in the next few years. So, and then you got guys like Gabe Christensen coming in potentially at the 97-pounder. Connor Corbin's another one who's been okay. Zach Glazier, another guy who's going to compete at those upper weights. I mean, I'm just looking through these some of these young guys that Iowa's got. Patrick Kennedy, another one. They got him at 74 right now. Brettley Rayna, Colby and Cullen, Shriver, Leaf Schroeder, Kobe Siebrecht, Stickley. I mean, Jesse Ibarra, another big name, coming out of Arizona. So, the Hawks got some hammers stepping in, and Penn State and Iowa are going to have some battles for years to come. So, Really excited to see it.
Now, question for you guys, and this is just coming from my novice background as not knowing a whole lot about wrestling. But if you look at the way the team is shaped up right now, I mean, you got these guys who are upperclassmen who are basically going to be the leaders in their weight classes. Do you see guys who maybe are second up on some of those weight classes, as these guys leave? Do you see them changing weights? Are there candidates that are in our roster right now? Candidates that could either move up or move down depending on how the roster shakes out, so they could wrestle.
Yeah,
Dill, yeah.
Go ahead. Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah. I mean, there's quite a bit of it, to be honest with you.
Really?
I think, especially at those lighter weights. Typically Iowa's known for their hammers when it comes to the lighter weights, and I don't see anything really changing there. You look at this year. Jaden Ironman announces he's coming in to Iowa City, and him and Max Mirren essentially sat down, and Max is like, I want to go 49. And Jaden Ironman's like, hey, cool. Yeah, I was planning on going 141. So it's like, oh, that worked out perfect. No one's bitching about that. So, awesome to see. But I mean, bottom line, what these guys are going to do is, the best guy's going to wrestle. If somebody's got to cut 15 pounds to do it, they're going to do it. Like I said, Caleb Young, you might see him walking around in the offseason. I guarantee he's probably somewhere in the 60s, like normal weight. I guarantee he's got to cut that weight every single week to get down to 57, no doubt about it. And you see that wearing on him a little bit throughout the season in past years. So, another guy, because you got a ton of these guys at the middleweights that are going to be absolute hammers. You got like Seabreck, Rayna, both coming in at quote unquote 49 pounds. Stickley, again, Stickley's a senior. My bad. I don't know why I keep bringing him up, but Ibarra, another one, at 133 right now. You got Drake Ayala coming in at 125. So these guys can switch around weights if need be. However, bottom line is, if they want to wrestle, they're going to get into that open spot where they can. And obviously they do wrestle offs every year for a reason. So, those no-name guys can come out of nowhere, like when Spencer Lee got the red shirt pulled on him 3 years back. He was the best wrestler, and, they thought he had the best chance to help them win a national title potentially. So, yeah, you could definitely see some fluctuation. As far as these old guys go, the only one I can really see potentially moving weight is, Abe Assad, should Michael Kemmerer move on after this year. I could see him potentially being a pretty good 74-pounder. Now, again, if he can cut that 10 pounds, I don't know what he walks around at normally. So, Caleb's Young, another one I could see potentially bumping up, if Alex Marinelli decides to move on. But important to know, too, at the beginning of this season, all these guys pretty much all but guaranteed they'd be coming back next year as well. So we're not going to have to worry about that for a while, it sounds like. But, I definitely think there's some flexibility there, Rob.
That's another question that I think about. It's like sort of the game within the game when it comes to wrestling, where it's like you got to be, a quality wrestler when it comes to your technique and your form and the way that you either shoot or counter moves or things like that, which I'm just learning about, obviously. But you also have to like make sure that you're weighing what you need to weigh. So with that in mind, let me ask you guys, is it easier to cut weight or put weight on?
Oh, I'd say probably put weight on. I think it'd be way tough. Unless you're used to cutting weight, I think it'd be way tough to cut weight.
So think about a guy like coming into this year, like Nelson Brands last year was wrestling 184 with Abe Assad, and, Abe Assad eventually got the nod. Well, it was very obvious that Nelson Brands was an undersized 84-pounder. So, I think they said he spent a little bit of time with the Iowa strength and conditioning staff, like for the football squad, and, helped bulk him up a little bit. So, as far as that goes, I think you see that being a lot easier. But it's funny, and Lance, I think, would be able to provide really good perspective of this too, being in the college ranks. But even just at the high school ranks, like seeing guys come in on a Sunday, after a wrestling tournament, 10, 11, 12 pounds over was not uncommon. And in high school, your matches are typically on the duels are typically on Wednesday nights, or at least they were back then. So it's like, okay, so you got 3 days to cut, 10, 11, 12 pounds. Okay, yeah, you got a 2-pound allowance. Yeah, you still got to cut 11 pounds. How the hell are you going to do it? And by God, they always did it. They were really pissed off around lunchtime because they couldn't eat nothing. But, it was just the way it was. So I think overall, yeah, I just don't think there's any doubt about it. I'm kind of with Beau. I think it's got to be way easier to put on weight than it does to take it off. And especially for these wrestlers that are, running their dicks off for 3 hours a day.
I can imagine just wearing a garbage bag. You know what I mean?
Right. That's what, if you guys ever want to see a cool video, it's older, but you can find it on YouTube. They talk about like training like Iron Men and, the Iowa wrestling program, and you see a video of these wrestlers at Carver doing stairs. And we've all been to Carver. Those are steep stairs, and these guys are going up and down all the way around. And it's just you know, you see these guys get up to the top, throw up in a trash can, and get back going, and it's like, oh my god. I mean, just the shape that these guys have to be in is incredible. So, I mean, to that point, you know, it might be really difficult to put on weight, you know. So, I don't know. I could see it both ways.
If it was me, I'd want to, I'd want to have to cut. I would basically bulk to the point where I would get to, you're laughing at me. I would basically bulk to the point where like if I was wrestling at like 184, I would bulk to like 190 and then cut. So I'm a big 184.
Right.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I feel like that's the goal, and maybe that's just
The worst part with that though would be cutting the day of. So like if you miss weight by like, I don't know, a pound, you just gotta go run your dick off until you lose that pound. And then you could be tired and sweaty right before your meet or your match. And you could just lose a ton of energy, like basically starving yourself or not eating or not having anything that's gonna give you any sort of energy before you wrestle. Like that would be the only disadvantage to like being 190 leading up to your match the day of if you're wrestling before.
now. What's the time frame? I mean, you may not know this, but like of when you weigh in and when your match is.
Well, I mean, again, another good question for Lance, who actually has some,
Yeah.
collegiate wrestling experience. But I mean, I just remember the high school days. I think typically we weighed in, like 2 hours before, an hour before. So, I mean, you got a little bit of time to maybe get a sandwich in you or get a power bar in you and a Gatorade. But other than that, I mean, it's not like you're going and eating a steak dinner in between or anything like that. So, yeah, you don't have enough time to do much, but
Sure.
you can get hydrated a little bit and get some food in your belly.
Yep.
You're not going straight from the treadmill to the mat.
No.
Exactly. So for all those Iowa wrestling fans out there, we have Northwestern coming up next week, Wisconsin, and then Big Ten championships. Dill, this question is specifically for you. So Iowa's the number 1 team right now. Michigan is number 2. And then we all know that they paused all athletic activities the last couple of weeks. And then Penn State's number 3 right now. Does Iowa try and schedule Michigan or Penn State here within the next 2 weeks, knowing that we have a little bit of downtime before Big Ten championships? Or does Tom and Terry say, hey, don't worry about it. We're going to wrestle Northwestern. We're going to wrestle Wisconsin. And then we'll see everybody else at Big Ten championships.
I know the Tom Brand's answer, and the Tom Brand's answer is let's get Cale Sanderson and the Nittany Lions on the schedule. Me personally, I don't see the point of it. I mean, you're going to wrestle them at Big Tens. You're going to see them in 3 weeks. Like, why give anything away? It's kind of my thought process there. Northwestern and Wisconsin, both good times to, get matches in, make sure guys are loose and, on their correct own, championship path, if you will. So I wouldn't even bother with it. I don't see the point myself, but I also definitely wouldn't be surprised to see one of those matches made up as well. So
cool.
And if I had to guess, I would assume it would be the Penn State one.
Okay. Rob, I got a question for you, and this comes straight out of the mailbag from Lance, and I'll pass to Dylan after we get your answer, Rob. But Lance had a really fun little question for us here, and it was, would Spencer Lee, if he had the same weight as Gable Stevenson, so for everyone listening, Gable Stevenson is the heavyweight over at Minnesota, and him and Spencer Lee go back and forth on Twitter. They love each other. They're good wrestlers. If Spencer Lee and Gable Stevenson were the same weight, who do you think would win in a match? Rob, we'll start with you.
I think it's a pretty easy answer, and that's Spencer Lee. He just seems to, and you know what? I don't know if it's because he is a lighter weight and a smaller guy, but he does seem to be able, the times that I've seen him, fly around in the mat. He's got a lot of energy. He's really good. He's like always on attack. His matches where he gets, pins and things are super quick. You know what I mean? So it's like, you would think that would be the answer, but then you think about the other side. Well, if he's a bigger guy, like they don't move as quick as some of those smaller guys do. So, but I just think I want to go with maybe technique and and I'm going to say Spencer Lee. But what do you think, though? I mean, I'm by no means an expert at all.
Yeah. So when it comes to Spencer Lee as a wrestler and Gable Stevenson as a wrestler, they're both elite in their own ways. And so it'd be really interesting to see. So, and as far as Lance's question went, if Spencer Lee had his same skill set at the heavyweight weight, I think there's absolutely no question that Spencer Lee wins, and he likely wins by tech fall. Just his ability to ride on top. He doesn't let anybody out, and if he does, it's typically going for tech falls and that kind of thing. So you just don't see it. So when Spencer Lee gets on top of somebody, he's not letting them up. And so I don't see anything different happening with Gable Stevenson there. I know Gable Stevenson's good on his feet, has excellent takedown defense, and has a phenomenal, what was I going to say, double leg takedown as well. So I just don't see it with how good Spencer Lee is. We might be like, well, Homer's saying this, but I don't think anybody can really argue it, where he's the best pound for pound wrestler in the college wrestling right now. And frankly, it's not close. Where, I think Spencer has a very legitimate shot at not only winning a national title this year, but winning an Olympic championship in 2021 as well. Like, in my mind, that is not ridiculous. Like, I definitely think he's going to be the Olympic front runner at, what is that, 56 kilograms? I'm trying to remember, 57? I can't remember, but the lightest weight there. So he's just a freak. I just don't see him losing, and I don't think it'd be any different with Gable Stevenson there. So call me a homer if you want.
For sure. Gable Stevenson has a ton of upside, and I think he is pretty nimble, but I tell you what, Spencer Lee has just got the technique, and I think he just knows what the heck's going on. So I'm with you guys. Maybe we are homers, but really like that. One last thing that we need to cover here outside of wrestling is today's hiring about Coach Chris Doyle just got hired down at Jacksonville with the Jaguars underneath Urban Meyer, the former Florida and Ohio State coach, as the director of sports performance down with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Rob, I'm going to pass to you right away on this. What are your thoughts on the hire? What do you think about this? How do you think that the Jaguar players are going to respond to Doyle getting hired down there in Jacksonville?
Sure. I think Shad did what the owner of the Jags, I think he did exactly what he did with Urban Meyer, get him out in the boat down there, wine and dine him a little bit and say, hey, you know what? We got a pretty good squad down here. I got this yacht here. You can see I got all this money that we can throw at you. No, I'm just joking. I was just making a play off of the Pat McAfee show. If you guys ever watched that, he always jokes around about Shad, I think is his name, Assad or something like that, is the owner of the Jags. And he's just got this big boat, and Urban Meyer's a big boat guy. That's why he's going to be the coach. Regardless, guys, I think they got a great hire in Coach Doyle. I think they got a steal. I think it's too bad that he doesn't coach at Iowa anymore. I don't, obviously that some of that was racially driven, and I don't know anything about that when it comes to that. So it's hard to say if he's racist or if he's not. But I mean, even us, obviously we were talking before the show just about this hiring and about how even in the comment section on Twitter that was like, oh, I heard that guy's a racist or whatever. You guys can talk about that more, but I mean, it's not good if you are, if he is, it's terrible, but you can't argue with the results that he got. And I'm not saying that's an excuse for acting in an inappropriate way. But I will say, like, before we knew about any of that, the one thing that we always came back to is like, hey, Coach Doyle is going to get these boys ready. Hey, Coach Doyle is going to take this guy as a freshman, and he's going to be an NFL like first rounder. You know what I mean? And like, he knows what he knows what body types, and he's very good with like the system that he put in place, which we even got to hear a little bit firsthand from Parker Hesse and
Sam
Brinks, and about just like how they before they even get anybody on a program, they measure them to see like how much weight each knee can take, or in each side, and if there was a weak knee, that they would work to strengthen that knee before they would then continue on with building their bodies. And I think taking an approach like that is super interesting to me. And also, like, he knows exactly what body types are going to be successful in the NFL. He knows how to get people there, what to do with them. And so I think, he's going to fit right in. I think he's going to be in a crowd of people that are going to like, what he has to say. And I think that's going to be great for him. So I'm super happy for him. And I think the Jags got a great guy. Too bad he didn't go over the Bears is the problem. Sorry, long-winded. What did you guys think?
No, that's okay there, Rob. There's so many different ways you can go with this. You could talk about, okay, we have a politically correct answer. We have a non-politically correct answer. We have a filtered opinion. We have an unfiltered opinion. And I'm just going to straight up just tell you guys what I think, where I'm not going to come out and say that I think Chris Doyle was a fall guy in, all the racial allegations and whatnot that went down this past year, this past summer. Because I don't think that's necessarily true. I definitely think, there was an abuse of power there. There was racially insensitive incidents, that we heard about, like where, Chris Doyle telling people he's going to send them back to the streets and that kind of thing. Frankly, in today's world, that's unacceptable. And, right, wrong, or indifferent, whatever your opinion is there, that's just the way it is. I think, us three, we all went through, high school football and that kind of thing. And we probably heard, similar statements that would make our mothers cringe, in regards to, and anything about us as human beings. And again, that was normal. That was used as a motivational tactic. Now, you talk about where that line is. And I think it's fair to say that Chris Doyle crossed some lines in his 20, whatever years of coaching. That's absolutely fair to say. I think most people have, to be honest with you. Now, again, allegations of him saying the N-word or, talking about baby mamas and that kind of thing. Again, I don't think that full-blown makes him a racist. But racially insensitive, absolutely. And you're kind of getting my PC answer here, if you notice. Now, that being said, there's so much tolerance out there for being ignorant to whereas, okay, you can be rehabilitated. So Chris Doyle getting let go from the Iowa football program, and you see a lot on Twitter. A lot of people think his life should just be over and he should be bankrupt, and his kid should go hungry and get adopted by somebody who would be a better parent. I've heard it all, and obviously it sounds asinine to us now, but America's the land of second chances, and that's essentially what he's getting here. It's not like he's getting a strength and conditioning job by any means there. He's going to be more on the back end. He's going to be working with players individually and whatnot. And frankly, he's going to have some questions to answer because, as we all know, NFL's probably, dominantly African-American. So, someone's going to be like, yo, Coach Doyle, what the fuck? I heard you called some kid an N-word. And he's going to have to answer for that. And obviously, none of us went through the program. We don't know what happened. And I think bottom line, he's just going to have to stay from the start. Like, hey, here's how I fucked up. Here's what I learned. Here's how I've improved in my year off of coaching. And, I want to be here and I want to help us win a Super Bowl. And I think these guys as professional athletes would be able to resonate with that. Now, it's different when you're dealing with 18 to 20 or 2-year-old kids from all sorts of different backgrounds from, you got the guys on the farm in Iowa from the kids, off the streets of Southside Chicago, and you got everywhere in between in regards to college football players at the University of Iowa. So am I saying what Chris Doyle did was right? Absolutely not. No one's saying that. Now, that being said, should he never get a job again in his chosen field? Absolutely not. I do not agree with that whatsoever. I think, losing a job that he's held for 20 something odd years, some might argue it's not punishment enough because he got a buyout and that kind of thing. yeah, okay, the lawyers did all that. They figured all that. So, I don't think that's necessarily fair to pin it all on him and, giving him a shot as a director of sports performance with the Jacksonville Jaguars and an NFL team where, you're working with nothing but professionals rather than 18 to 22-year-old kids. Personally, I think it's a perfect fit. It's a no lose situation for Urban Meyer to where if it doesn't work out, it's like, hey, we gave him a shot, didn't work out, no big deal. Um, but yeah, it's a PR nightmare right now, but it's gonna blow over. Bottom line, what do you think, Beau?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a perfect job for him. Honestly, it's a retirement job for him, right? They moved to Jacksonville, Florida. He's got however many, 5+ years left, in the business.
No income tax.
Yeah, no income tax. I mean, it's perfect. And so, I mean, good kudos for him for getting that. But I have to echo what you said too about day one. He's got to go in day one and say, hey, guys, I fucked up. This is what I did. This is what I learned from that experience, and this is how I'm a better man. And he's got to create that trust right away from his players. And I agree completely, Dill, what you said too. Like, hey, our main mission here is to win a Super Bowl. I'm not your head strength conditioning coach. I'm all about you getting better, and this is how we're going to do it. And I think this is literally the perfect job for him. He doesn't have to sit and yell at players for not doing their job. He has to sit there and evaluate players and say, hey, this is how we can get you better, essentially. So there's no provocative language or any actions that he could take towards individuals that could minorly think that he would be some sort of racist. Now, I may be part of the majority of the crowd thinking that I don't think he's a racist. I think he's probably done some things that have been pretty sketchy, maybe towed the line. And again, I can't speak for those situations, but I will say this is that Jacksonville lucked out with a terrific coach. I think that him and Kirk Ferentz are still good buddies. I still think that they talk on a daily. And I think that hopefully, and shouldn't say think, but I hope that our new strength conditioning coach can do half the job what Chris Doyle did at Iowa, because Doyle did an impeccable job. He develops talent. He created so many great players from the walk-on status or the 1-2 stars, made them into 5-star athletes and people. And I just can hope and pray that the University of Iowa does their job finding the right person, whether that be Ray or the next person that comes in and that can develop players like he did.
And what's funny too is another thing I've heard is that Chris isn't qualified for the role that Jacksonville hired him in. And he most absolutely is qualified for said role, because you talk about building a strength and conditioning program, and not even necessarily just the weights, but all the behind the scenes shit like you were talking about, the nutrition, like all the body analytics, the sleep charts, all of that. Like, those are going to be things that are developed into this process. And obviously there's going to need to be some tweaks, going into the NFL. It's probably hard to tell a $20 million man that he has to go to bed, but so there's going to be some, tweaks and whatnot that need to be made. But I ask, anybody involved in the Iowa football program, and they're literally still running Chris Doyle's program. Nothing has changed. The guy that's the head of it all has changed, and Raymond Braithwaite. So, overall, he is qualified for this position. He took a year off to essentially, do nothing but reflect and, reflect where he is as a man. And, we can only hope that he's learned his lessons and, learn to be better from this. And, frankly, I hope he goes on to have a fantastic career and, changes the lives of young men and continues doing what he loves doing and making a positive impact, rather than the negative lasting impact that he made on, I wouldn't even say a majority, but, a portion of former Iowa Hawkeye players.
A small portion.
Right.
Yep. I 100% agree, guys. And I also, just when it comes to that, you want to look at somebody and you want to see them for the things that they do good and not condemn them for the things that they do bad. And I think that sometimes in today's day and age, it's just too bad, because it seems like that's the more juicy story. That's why cancel culture is a thing. And, I feel like Chris Doyle pretty much just got canceled. Now I don't want to downplay any sort of situations that I don't know about. All we know is just allegations at this time. But, I mean, I just wish him the best of luck. And we do know that he did a good job here. And we can say that for sure. So, so we want him to continue to do good,
Yep.
which we know that
I
he
can
will.
dig it.
Well,
Hell yeah.
guys, that about wraps it up. I think we covered everything. We have some things to look forward to as far as wrestling goes. We have a gauntlet of a schedule for basketball. It's the off season for football. They're still talking about if you guys read The Athletic, they were talking about quarterback controversies and who's going to be competing for quarterback this next year, but they got a full off season this year to look at it. So more to come on that, obviously, in future episodes. But we do want to say, thanks to everybody for listening to a great episode.
Hey, and speaking of, Rob, I'm so sorry. I completely forgot to bring this up, but as far as football related news goes, so signing day came along and Iowa did sign a highly sought after center, 3-star out of Jacksonville, Florida, who, funny enough, was recently let go from his position with the Jacksonville Jaguars as the head of strength and conditioning. So just kind of funny how that works, where Tom Mislinski is his name. He gets fired along with that staff. Well, then Urban Meyer gets hired, and then Chris Doyle comes in there, and then Michael Mislinski, Tom's son, commits to play football at the University of Iowa. So just absolutely wild how that all turned out and how everything all kind of connects together, and just what a small world it truly is. So
just building that pipeline of Iowa players going to the NFL. You know what I mean?
right.
Like there's just so many ripple effects. You got to think that, those Jacksonville, coaches are going to be looking at Iowa players differently. So
that's right. O-line you.
All right. Well, we're going to close this episode out like we always do. We want to say thank you so much for listening. Cheers if you're drinking along with us. We had a great episode, I thought. And we're going to close it out with a little Iowa victory polka.